Have you ever lived next to someone who treats neighborhood guidelines like sacred law? This story takes that idea and turns it up to the extreme. It's about a man named Mark who moved into a quiet suburban community, hoping to finally relax after years in a high-pressure career. He wasn't flashy. He kept to himself. All he wanted was a calm place to unwind. But his dream of peace didn't last long. It was quickly crushed by the neighborhood's self-appointed ruler, Carol, president of the Homeowners Association. Carol thrived on authority. She carried the HOA handbook like it was scripture and enforced it with frightening enthusiasm. From the day Mark's moving truck pulled up, she had her eye on him. His first violation? His lawn measured a quarter-inch too high. Then his trash bins lingered at the curb 5 minutes beyond the acceptable window. Each morning brought a new passive-aggressive notice taped to his door, citing obscure rules he had supposedly broken. Mark tried to remain civil. He attempted calm conversations, logical explanations. But reasoning with Carol was like debating a wall, an angry, self-righteous wall. The neighbors had long since learned to stay quiet. They traded hushed stories about Carol's iron rule. The time she threatened to find a family because their child's chalk drawings counted as unauthorized public art. The afternoon she measured the spacing between flowers in someone's garden bed. Most residents complied instantly just to stay off her radar. But Mark wasn't built that way. He believed in fairness. He refused to be bullied over something as trivial as a welcome mat. His refusal only fueled her. What began as nasty notes escalated into public confrontations. Carol would shout across the street about his unapproved garden gnome. She once followed his car to the neighborhood gate just to confirm he made a complete stop. What started as enforcement had turned into obsession. Mark's sanctuary felt like hostile territory. Then Carol shifted tactics. She began whispering to neighbors that Mark seemed suspicious. She questioned how he supported himself, suggested he might be involved in something illegal. Slowly, friendly waves disappeared. Conversations grew awkward. Mark found himself isolated, not because he had done anything wrong, but because he refused to bow to intimidation. Still, Carol wasn't satisfied. Citations and rumors weren't enough. She wanted him gone, publicly disgraced, preferably arrested. That's when a darker idea took root. If Mark seemed suspicious, perhaps she could provide the police with a reason to investigate. She convinced herself that one nudge would expose whatever criminal life she imagined he was hiding. Her plan was disturbingly simple. She knew his routine. Every morning before sunrise, Mark left for a jog. For a few minutes, his car remained unlocked in the driveway while he stretched. That brief window was all she needed. One evening, Carol obtained a small plastic bag filled with white powder. It was harmless baking soda, but convincing enough to look incriminating. In her mind, this was a winning move. Before dawn the next day, under dim streetlights, Carol crossed the road. Her pulse raced, not with fear but excitement. She slipped into Mark's unlocked car and tucked the bag beneath the passenger seat, leaving just enough exposed to be noticed. Then she hurried home, adrenaline buzzing through her veins. She waited an hour. Finally, with a steady but feigned anxious voice, she dialed 911. "I'd like to report suspicious activity," she said, layering her tone with manufactured concern. She claimed she'd seen Mark placing drugs in his vehicle and fear for the safety of the community's children. She provided his address and vehicle description with trembling precision. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars rolled onto the quiet street, lights flashing silently. Carol watched from behind her curtains, a satisfied smile forming. This was the moment she had imagined. Mark escorted away in handcuffs, exposed and humiliated. The officers knocked. Mark answered the door in running clothes, composed but curious. One officer explained they received an anonymous tip about illegal substances in his car and requested permission to search. Mark didn't flinch. "No problem," he replied calmly. "Go ahead." Carol frowned. Where was the panic? The outrage? The officers approached the vehicle. One opened the passenger door and immediately spotted the corner of the bag. He retrieved it and examined its contents, then exchanged a glance with his partner. Carol's heart pounded. They found it. The officer returned to Mark, holding the bag. "Sir, we'll need you to come with us." Everything was unfolding perfectly. But then Mark reached into his wallet, not for identification, but for a gold badge. He flipped it open and held it toward them. "I believe you'll find everything is in order," he said evenly. The officers leaned in. Their expressions shifted from routine professionalism to stunned recognition. They straightened instantly. "Director, sir, we're extremely sorry," one stammered. The badge identified him as the director of the Drug Enforcement Administration. Mark wasn't a criminal. He was the head of the federal agency responsible for combating drug trafficking nationwide. The irony was overwhelming. From her window, Carol couldn't hear the conversation, but she could see the shift. The officer's posture had changed entirely. They were apologizing. This wasn't how her story was supposed to end. Mark gestured subtly toward Carol's house. "I have a strong suspicion where the anonymous report originated," he told the officers. "It's part of ongoing harassment I've been documenting." Both officers turned and looked directly at Carol's window. Her smile evaporated. One officer spoke into his radio. Moments later, another patrol car arrived. A female officer stepped out and began walking toward Carol's front door. Reality hit her like a collapsing wall. She hadn't just filed a false police report. She had planted fabricated evidence. She had attempted to frame a federal law enforcement official, the director of the DEA. The weight of what she'd done crushed her composure. The world around her blurred. The pristine lawns and tidy houses seemed to tilt. Her breathing shortened. Her knees buckled. As the officer raised her hand to knock, Carol's vision went black. She collapsed onto her polished hardwood floor. The self-crowned queen of the neighborhood hadn't been overthrown by rebellion. She had destroyed herself. And the peaceful community she once controlled was about to witness a very different kind of drama, one in which Carol no longer held the power. All because someone's lawn was a quarter-inch too long. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you next time.